Hello and welcome to this channel. This is the Sacred Gates Ascension podcast with Illura. I want to ask you a question. Many of us are tuned into normal. So this idea of what normal is. And to everybody, normal, as well as the contrasting state of abnormal, or the concept of abnormal, is going to be a unique experience, even if it's similar to someone else's or the majority. It's always going to be a unique experience. And I'm curious for you how much normal and your idea of normal affects you. And when I say affects you, I mean negative way. In a negative way, limits you and your progress on a spiritual path. Because if you're from, like me, a Western country, for example, I have found that in the West, they're a little bit behind. My observation is that they're a little bit behind in the acceptance of energy, vibration, resonance, chi, for example. And the Western people tend not to come from a background where there's a lot of richness in our writings and in our history of really having that come through from the past. Whereas you go to places like India and their connection to spirit is very strong, and it really comes through. You connect to places like Africa and places like, I would say, Thailand, where the spiritual energy is coming through. Arabic countries as well. There's a lot of giving up to spirit, a lot of trusting and having faith. And I find that coming from a Western culture that and perhaps from Australia, which I do believe is actually quite behind in many ways, is quite an island and isolated, that there's a tendency for people, and I will speak for myself, that there's been a tendency to disconnect from your spiritual energy because you want to fit in. And all of this kind of, as an adult, comes from our childhood, where we have fears of not being validated, we have fears of not fitting in, we have fears of looking weird, not looking normal. And I think it's really important, if you're being controlled by normal, it can really, really, really undermine you and really hold you back for an entire life, if not lifetimes. I mean, what is normal? When I look at normal, especially with the coronavirus, you look at the news, there's a lot of mental health issues going on at the moment. There has to be a huge increase, although it's not talked about, but in the levels of suicide at this time, because people are just like realizing that building their lives on normal can be devastating when a lot of those normal things are taken away. And there are people who normal people and mainstream society would consider abnormal, and they're also probably going through a difficult time when challenges arise. It doesn't make you immune to challenges to be kind of abnormal or different. But what I'm finding is that a lot of people are blocking their connection to spiritual energy, and that it's not normal, it's not accepted, it's not acceptable to be very connected to your energy, to have your spirit senses open. And so people then naturally tune into that, consciously and unconsciously, subconsciously, and repress and suppress those energies, those senses awakening, and it just becomes normal not to do that. And so you slip into that normal, and you find that perhaps you either never pick up that spiritual sword in this life, and also you may pick it up, but you keep picking it up and putting it down, picking it up and putting it down. Or there could be just a billion examples of how you sabotage your journey on your path of spiritual development, developing your spirit. Because if you look at the world, for example, the world I come from in Australia, and being white myself, really fitting into the mold and the culture that I came from, is that it really was a prison in many ways, and it really was almost like a curse. At the time, for many years didn't realize that it was like a curse, and I suppose it's given me my own karma that I need to work with, and that I'm working with, that gives me exactly what I need for my journey, as does your experience as well. So I think it's important to reflect on normal, especially if you've been controlled by it, or you sense or you full-blown know that you are controlled by it, to whatever spectrum you're on. and to what degree. And there may be a very silly reason that you're holding yourself back because of this weird, repressed idea, subconscious belief system and narrative, or conscious, about what normal is and who you're meant to be in the normal model. And when you do look at normal, and there's a lot of people out there trying to fit into normal, which is often what we call like ticking the boxes, there's a lot of depression, a lot of suicide, a lot of soul loss, a lot of lack of nourishment in normal. And I think now you see in the world a lot of hotspot. Every country is going through kind of like a dismantling of what normal is, and that a lot of people are not happy with those big systems that are meant to be taking care of them, and this idea of normal, and like there's even the new normal when it comes to COVID. So I just think it's an interesting time, and I think a lot of people, because there's been so much change, are reflecting on what they think is meant to be, what they think they're meant to be, what they think their experiences, their clothes, their practices, their food, whatever it is, their government, what things are meant to be like and what they want things to be like. And so taking a look at how you fit in with normal in your own self, you may notice that there's a rising and a crumbling away, that there's a need to crumble like stones and push and like come out of the rubble of what you've thought you're meant to be, and actually experience your true self, which is a very large spectrum of higher selves, higher bodies that wants to come through. Now, you may experience this in your own energetic way, in your own mental way, your own emotional way, your own physical way, but there is an opportunity to feel your higher bodies, coming through, your real connection to your energy, your real true interest and connection and interest and passion and motivation and inspiration and natural ability as well, and drive to not just be normal, and this very potent spiritual self that you are. And you feel that normal, that weird old narrative, maybe a little younger child or teenager often as well, just it doesn't need to be there anymore. It has no worth. It needs to be sacrificed. And, to let it go and to question and notice and be honest about any part of you that really, really fixates on what normal, whatever it is to you. And it may just be something like wanting to fit in or not wanting to seem different, wanting to be liked, whatever it is. Take a look. Okay, thanks for listening. Bye-bye.